Alright, so if you stuck around for part 2 of our segment, I said I was going to come back and shorten these leads and clean this all up. Cleaning it up isn't the only reason. First off, coils of wire like this creates inductance. So if any of you have ever seen one of those YouTube videos where they're actually sticking a piece of metal between here, they're applying voltage, positive and negative, to each end, and the inductance here creates a magnetic field, reacts with the metal and turns it red hot. This also will increase resistance and decrease amperage. So one of the things you don't want on a winch is something that will decrease amperage. So we're not only doing this for aesthetic reasons, we're also doing it to maximize the performance of the winch. So let me get everything unhooked. I will tell you, you're going to need a couple of 10mm wrenches to take these off. Negative off first, negative on last. That way you don't accidentally short something out. We're also going to find an ignition circuit for that wire so that the winch only works with the motor running and the key on. And you will also need a couple of 8-gauge terminals. They look like this. Now that wiring looks deceptive. It looks 4, but trust me, once we cut into it and look at it, you're going to realize there's not a lot of wire inside there. And ultimately then some heat shrink tubing. And so we'll discuss that shortly. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got the negative unhooked. We've got the positive unhooked from the bike. But I have just set the bolt back on the positive because we need to get our length from here over to here. So at this point, as long as this doesn't touch ground, the circuit's dead. So we're going to work this cap off so that we can get this loose. And I will go ahead and stop here, and we'll pick it back up when I get this apart. Okay, so we're at a place now where I have kind of got that where I want it. It'll actually end up laying down kind of like so. If you're looking right here, our negative's still out of the way. I'm going to reinforce that because no matter what you do here, as long as your ground's unhooked, your circuits are dead. So now it's just a matter of picking how long we want that cord to be, and better to go just a tad bit long than too short. So what I'm going to do is step away momentarily, come back, and we are going to cut that wire off. So the next thing we want to do is strip it. So again, and this is a good point to throw in a disclaimer. I am not responsible for you cutting your thumb off. So next step will be put our red heat shrink tubing on there, get it way out of the way. Normally I would solder these, but I for one have a crimping device that works very, very well. And so in this case, we're in the dry for the most part. We're going to heat shrink tube it. Soldering's kind of a mess, especially, I mean, I'd have to take the whole thing out and go solder the end on, heat shrink it, come back and install it. For this video, we'll go another direction. These crimpers can be had, but you can crimp them in a vise, crimp them with vice grips. They just have to be secure and not come out. So, but that is a hydraulic crimping tool, and they work really awesome. I'll throw a plug out to Amazon, that's where you can find them, and they are called a hydraulic crimping tool. Alright, so we're going to strip that out and I'll show you a little trick. Okay, so I've stripped back the first section, but I've left a little pin on there. So the little round guy, you're going to bring right up to the edge. You're going to get rid of all your extra copper wire. And you don't have to twist this down much to get this back on. So the way I trim this, you can either A, leave that on, or B, reach in there with a pair of dikes and cut it off. Me, not hurting anything, so I'm just going to leave it there. Next, and this is going to be hard to see on the camera, but next you're going to come up and get your crimping tool, holding everything in place. You're going to run that crimping tool down just till it contacts the connector, and there's a little bell on that connector. So little bell on the end of that connector, and you should want that bell right out close to the end of your connector. So I'm going to put that up where you can see it. It's kind of awkward. This is kind of an unusual position to try to film it for you guys and crimp it at the same time. But while holding that, you can see that the crimper's in there. Once you got it where you want it, you just compress it down. And you just go till it won't go no more. Which is right there. Then you release it, and you've got a nice crimp. And at that point, bring your heat shrink tubing up and you heat it. So pencil torch, regular propane torch, not too much heat. This stuff will shrink really quick. So I'm going to shrink it real quick and I'll get back to you. So once we get it all together, it's all crimped, heat shrinked. Yeah, I got a little one, but so will you. So now we have a good connection. Now we can find our boot. That's on the end of our red wire. You guys are going to find out, if you haven't already, that this is not fun. So let me fix that. Okay, so I've now made that connection here. So red wire, red post. We're going to put the rubber baby buggy bumper back on there. Now, those of you that watched the first video, why aren't those boots also down on the winch motor itself? Well, the big reason I don't put them down there is they will collect moisture. This is more in the dry. You do not want this to come in contact with a negative power source, and we are pretty close to that negative power source. All the boots should be on your relay. Leave your winch connections open. One, you can look for corrosion, and two, if you've got a boot over the top of it, it's going to store moisture and you're going to get corrosion even quicker in a sealed environment. So in my opinion, it's best to leave them open. Your opinions may differ, and that's fine, but we all have our ways of doing things, and that's just the way I do this. So alright, so our red wire now to our ignition source is not connected, and I have this all ready to go back in there. So We do have to put a little bit of a pinch in things. The bolt goes all the way through. On the back side is a washer and a star washer, and then it's just a matter of putting it on. The star washer should help hold it in place while you tighten it. Keep your thumb on that cable because you want it to stay low. Polaris did put a protective battery cover on here, so you can cover and protect your power source from any outside grounds. And that was kind of nice of them because they left the end of it split. So even though you've now put a winch cable on there, everything will go back on there like it should. So I'm going to do the same thing for the ground side. We just it's just the same as the positive side, so I'm not going to bore you with the video of doing that, but I'll go ahead and get that stripped down, get a connector on it, and get it ready to put back together. So the neat thing about the ground wire is you can just cut it from the source end. I don't have to, because of the circuit breaker having all of that extra cable on it. I had to go to the relay. For the black wire, you don't need to go to the relay. You just cut however much you need off of it. And at this point, we reach down here in our parts bin, which just happens to be the storage compartment, and we're going to put our bolts back on. This will effectively restore power, and with the relay in there, you got to do just a little manipulating on the ground wire, but you can see in the video that that ground wire passes right by that relay. So it's good to keep them covered, because if it ever frays, you're in trouble. We're going to grab our washer, our star washer, and our nut. Put our star washer on there. And then our shoulder nut. And then we just tighten it up. If you've got strong enough fingers, you only need one 10mm wrench. I think I said in the beginning that 2 would probably work better, but anyway, now that's a lot cleaner. Now next, we're going to find an ignition source for that. Now on the Polaris, and again we're working on a 2025 Polaris 570 EPS, you're going to have 2 auxiliary wires down here. So I'm using my fluke meter. You can use a 12-volt test light, you can use anything you get from Harbor Freight, but you're going to probe these wires, and they're the same source, so they really don't matter. If you cannot see them in the video, I will put a picture in there so that you can see what I'm talking about. But there are 2 spade connectors, and they're orange with a white stripe. So to test them, we're going to throw our meter on there and see what we get. So effectively we have 0 voltage. Now I'm going to reach around, turn the key on, and we're going to probe it again, and we have 12.41 roughly. So that tells us that's a switched ignition source. So we don't have to go very far to hook up this red wire. So let me reset. So I spared you having to watch me measure, cut that wire, and put an end on it. But basically, this is a 16 to 18 gauge spade. I noticed in the winch kit that it had a 18 to 22, but somewhere or other in my infinite let's throw the trash away, it left. So I do have a collection of these, but if you're doing the winch install, then you might want to pay attention and hold that back. Now, the easiest way I have found, and I had to step away and grab a tool, to hooking this up is just reach down in there, grab that with a pair of needle nose, find the end of your wire, and if all goes well, that will plug in like so. So there you go. So now you have an ignition switch source for your winch, and your winch won't work until the key is on. So I'm going to just stow that away. Also make sure that the green connectors here are mated together, because they do have an insulating cover on them. I guess that's emergency disconnect, not really sure. Harbor Freight put it there. We're going to leave it there. So I'll move this out of the way, and you can see that really cleaned things up. So I'm going to do another video on how I routed the winch lead for the winch remote, and also how I put the handlebar mounts on. So that'll be another part of the video. I'll put the link down in the description, and I'll also put the link to the first part of the video, step 1, where we put the winch on, in case you can't find it. So if you like these videos and you like to tinker with stuff, I urge you to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and I will put out as many of these as I have projects to do. So thanks for watching.